guys, it's Litecoin Lisa, and you're watching The New Normal. We are going on come hell or high water. Nothing's going to stop us. So hopefully Satoshi Sean can join us. We'll be right back. You guys give us a like, share this video. We're doing this thing. Be right back. Hey guys, thank you to everybody in the chat for being so patient. I figure we could start off with this sweet lady sentiment because we are getting it from all sides lately, and we're not going to give up. So we're going to keep going. Oh my gosh, I think he can join us. Well, this is a perfect way to start the show. Sean's here. We're going to jump in. I think this is a great way to start the show, and with just this perfect sentiment. This is where we are right now.
To the guy that's blowing the whistle, we are not deterred. And so for anyone that's here being an activist and yelling today, here's the statement that I need everyone to understand. We will not back down. We will not stop asking questions. We are looking for the truth. And we believe the truth can be found by reaching out and answering and asking the right questions to the right people.
That's where we are.
So, are those all the whistleblowers that have been silenced?
Absolutely. The whistleblowers have been released. Release the whistleblowers. Speaking of releasing the whistleblowers, I heard the president of Mexico was asking for the release. That was one of the links.
That was bold, I thought.
I think that we need some more bold things like that happening. Thanks for joining me. You had to jump through a few hoops to get here. I appreciate it.
I kept using the link. And when you were on my show and I sent you a link, I think maybe I was because I kept going into my own StreamYard.
Your own StreamYard.
And I was like, why does this not working? So I finally went to the Twitter link you sent, and that worked.
Well, there we go. Well, I'm glad you're here. And thanks to everybody in the chat. You guys are awesome. They're entertaining each other, talking and chatting it up. And so finally I was like, okay, hold my breath. I'm just going to jump in here and hit a few things. So I'm glad everybody hang in there. And
thank you all very much. Hey, Phil. Good to see everybody here.
Yeah.
Public Awakening, Clint, there's a ton.
Yeah, lots of good people. Nana, Tom, Phil C, Public's been texting me. Westwood's there. Stephen Tyrell and Tom were one of the first ones in there. Open-minded Bitcoin's there. Trini Man's there. Rick's there. I think we've got just about got Rob too is there. Haven't seen him in a little bit.
I'm so tired of this. I talked to you about the words and how it just seems like out of nowhere about a year or so ago. People don't call Democrats, they call them Democratic. And it's a completely different thing. And then I've heard it's hardcore, especially with the Democratic lawmakers that have left Texas and are up in Washington. It's getting to be like blatant. Because before I can understand it's a similar word, people kind of use it. But now it's like it's obviously used in place of just the word Democrat. I mean, they use it in places where it doesn't even really fit. So at the time, I said, that's weird. Even a year or so ago, I said, no one ever said that before.
The whole Democratic thing. So in Australia, one of my friends, Sol Rita, that's she does psychic readings and stuff. And we did this like really long reading thing. She's mentoring me in some stuff. And she was talking about how they use the opposite words there. Like, I wish I could remember the exact words.
So weird because they're down under. It's so weird.
Yeah. And
it's like what's the word? It's like stereotypical. It's almost like a joke, like a stereotype, but they really do that. I mean, even the toilet water goes a different way. It's just so, it's like so funny.
That it's exactly opposite.
Yeah.
Yeah, because she would say, like, I can't remember what word it was, that it was like the conservative or the liberal.
Mm-hmm.
She was talking about the union people and that they were um, conservative or something like that.
Yeah.
Oh, I wish I could remember. Anyway, if I had been prepared for that. But I did want to touch on, before we get into too much rant. So we've been on Tuesdays, we've been following the Arizona thing, and the latest, just to keep everybody up to snuff on this. This was a very hard article to find because most of them say that that they filed for an additional subpoena, even though there's been nothing found. And so this one actually lists that there's been a subpoena, issued a new subpoena to the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors related to the ongoing ballot audit. So, and it talks about what exactly they wanted in this report. So this one, they say they want the documents being requested are: number one, all reports, findings, and other documents concerning any breach of voter registration server, Maricopa County Recorder's office systems, or any other aspect of the county election systems at any time within 6 months of the November 3rd general election. Number two, all ballot envelopes received in connection with November 3rd general count or digital images of the same. Number three, all usernames, passwords, pins, security keys, or tokens required to access any ballot tabulation devices used in connection with the count in Maricopa County, including but not limited to administrator access. Number four, all Maricopa County registered voter records to date with any and all change histories, including the field that was added, removed, or changed, a timestamp date, or changed, identifying information for the individual who made the change, employee ID, IP address. Number five, all routers used in connection with November 3rd, virtual images of the same, and the public IP of each router. All Splunk logs, networks logs, net flows, or similar data related with systems associated with, in any way, the administration of the November 3rd count for the same time period, beginning 60 days before and ending 90 days after. So Senate Republicans had planned to canvass homes and ask people about their voting patterns, but it may drop the idea under pressure from the Department of Justice, which warned that the effort could violate laws. So,
Whoa. Don't you hate it when your computer goes splunking and doesn't keep good logs? It's very annoying.
So,
but that last thing you just read, they wanted to canvass, go home to home, but it might be against law. That's interesting, considering
that other trick-or-treating's not against the law.
It's all this stuff about tricking and more to give you a treat. Then it's being talked about like it's I would say like it's normal, but it's not. Like, we know it's not normal, but we don't care. That's the attitude I'm getting. Before, they were talking about, oh, this is normal, this is the way things are, it's all that. Now, especially that dude, Cuomo, he's a mobster, man. He is. Completely. That family is a mob family. They just went into politics and information instead of drugs or prostitution or something like that. But they're 100% mob family. They operate as a mob family. Every single one of them graduated from Harvard, and they're dense. I mean, dense. I got into Harvard, so I don't have as much faith in the Harvard acceptance system because I got in, but still,
I did not get in. I didn't apply. I didn't get in.
I kind of applied as a joke, just I wondered. And then, like, I got through the first level, and then a friend of mine that I've been having trouble contacting, that I finally was able to do. He told me he's called me 3 or 4 times, but he told me that he got this weird. I said, why didn't you leave a voicemail? And he said he kept telling me your voicemail was full, and it wasn't. So, and I never thought of anything until you told me of the problems you were having. Oh. And he used to work for one of the 3-letter agencies, the C one, and he liked his martinis shaken, not stirred. That was his job. He did that. I was always really proud of him. and I thought it was cool, but he doesn't do that anymore. He works for Intel, but the computer company, not intelligence, but for Intel, and he's retired. But my kids thought, oh, you're crazy, Dad. You're just talking your crazy talk. But then I was like, dude, if there's anyone, like if I'm sure I'm on some list for something, and some computer algorithm is gonna be like, oh, this dude's on some other list. That's just an automatic. Try to break those guys up. They don't need to connect. That's something that I've been thinking about, especially with all the stuff you've been dealing with.
Yeah, I'm trying to find if I can find that email that Amy sent me. We talked about that a couple weeks ago. We had the article that the 3-letter agency that starts with the F, the Effers, that they put out a post, and it was an article saying that they were going to be working with carriers to intercept any communication. They were going to be working with wireless carriers to intercept any information that if you were sharing information about potato salad, as you call it, or the jab, the prick that we call it a lot of times here. And
we talked about this at length, me and my friends, and I think we should go with stick, because it's a wooden stick. It's too broad a word.
The stick.
Yeah.
Get just like you used to get the spoon. We used to get the spoon. My mom used to use a spoon on us, but get the stick.
Yeah.
So whatever the stick, getting the stick, and I don't know. It's just
use the spoon too. I just remember I used to take them and hide them. I'd drop them behind the stove, and our stove broke in our apartment when I was little, and they came in and replaced the stove. And they pulled the stove out, and there's like 9 wooden spoons behind the stove.
And your mom's like, "Now you're getting spanked with all of them."
Yeah, the workers were like, "Why are there 9 wooden spoons back here?" My mom just looked at me, and I was like, "Oh God!"
You knew exactly why. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's funny. Yeah. The stick is a good word for it. Yeah. So they came out blatant with it. Amy, I think a friend of hers found the article. We shared it on the show. And then literally I'm on, I think, day 5 since calling them, that they have not returned a phone call to me. They, other people can call me. You were having trouble texting me, like it was like showing up green or blue or something.
Did you get a text before I sent you that one?
I think I did.
They're all blue, and then this one was green. And I didn't hear back from you, which I always do. So
then my husband was like, then my husband gets on my phone and starts deleting stuff. And I'm like, oh my God, please don't do that. So I don't know what happened. He deleted like some of my contacts and stuff. I don't even know what happened. So I don't know. I think that there's a lot going on. I mean, I've just been, and I know I understand that I'm a little paranoid because I know some things, and I'm privy to, not that I know more than anyone else that is watching in this, but that I know the same things that our people that are in the chat know, because I'm aware of what's going on, and because I found that article, like the kid on the helpline with me. I was like, well, so not to be paranoid, but are you able to see if there's any 3-letter agencies watching my text messages or my phone? And he was like, well, no. I mean, I could tell, like, I said, like, could you tell if I got hacked? Or he's like, well, I think I could tell, like, if there was a charge on your account, but I couldn't tell if, I said, like, if there's somebody watching it or something
in place. Yeah.
And he's like, I don't think I could tell that, but maybe my supervisor. He's like, why? And so I tell him, and he's like, oh, I'll have to tell my supervisors that. I hadn't heard that. And I was like, well, I mean, you could probably not Google it, but you might be able to DuckDuckGo it. But yeah, it's a real thing.
I think it's because it's not that we know so much more. We accept it, and that's something I think that's really nefarious about this time, is that they're not hiding stuff. So There's no reason for the watchers, because the watchers have been compromised. That was always the thing. You could come out publicly as a whistleblower because it would protect you, because now they can't do anything because it'll raise too many questions. But it doesn't matter if they raise questions anymore, because no one's going to ask the actual questions.
But here's my other thought process on it, because I'm the hopium hustler. Is it that this has always been going on, and just it's being brought to light because we are being shown? Is this the good guys showing us, no, guys, this is what's always been going on, and we're bringing you out of this? And so we had to show you, because no one would have believed how much we have been surveilled and how much our rights and freedoms have been trampled on.
Well, this is where
it was shown to us.
This is where I think the basic questions come into, which people don't want to say. This is what woke culture, this is what cancel culture has done. The basic, when you look at this, it has nothing to do with Twitter, Microsoft, any of that. The basic question is, why do they care about white supremacists?
Right.
And far-right militias? White supremacists have every right in the United States to spew and talk about their ideology and what they believe. And so do far-right militias have a right to assemble, have a right to train, have a right to do. The law is set up that you can believe and talk about whatever you want, even if it's uncomfortable, wrong, stupid, doesn't matter, evil.
Right.
Literally evil. You think you can worship Satan in some other countries without being killed? Try to open up a church of Satanism in any Middle Eastern country. You'll be dead really quick. So that's the thing. You have no right to go after white supremacists just because they're shitty. It doesn't matter. Everyone has a right. And like I said before, even as a child, I understood. I remember being like 6 years old, and I understood that you have to allow terrible people to talk to you and to give their points in open forum, so that you can completely refute it and crush it with logic, with an actual debate. If not, that's honestly how it grows. But that's a whole different thing. The main thing here is it doesn't matter. If you remove white supremacists for anything else, if you put in Muslims or Christians or whatever ideology or model hobbyists, it doesn't matter. They're going after illegally infringing on the rights of a group of people, not for a crime, but just for a belief. And that's the core part. That's what's wrong. It's not that they're doing it is terrible, but it shouldn't be, they're doing it under the guise like, hey, this is okay. And
but in that, then isn't that just doing exactly what we're saying? They're exposing themselves in a way that, like, they're telling the truth about themselves too, then in that way.
So,
what I mean?
So it's almost like they're covering their butts though. So now they're able to come out and say, hey, we're going to do this terrible illegal thing.
Because they call it extremism, or they call it this ugly name.
But then if they're pulled before Congress, like, hey man, we were very transparent and open what we were doing. We never received anything that said don't do it. And now you're questioning. It's that old thing of asking for forgiveness instead of asking for permission. They just put it out there, and then if they ever get called up for it, they can literally, their butts are covered. We did this. We were transparent about doing it. We talked about doing it. And now you're going to yell at us for having done it. No one said anything while we were doing it. So I think that's the whole MO now, that you basically just put it out there in plain sight, and journalists aren't covering it. No one's covering it for outrage. And if you say anything about it,
then you're one of them.
You're one of them. And that's the thing. I just literally said, hey, you shouldn't be messing with those white supremacists. And they're like, why are you white supremacist? No, man, because not everything is us versus them.
Right.
This is literally my rights, your rights, are under attack because the basic fundamental principles of those rights are under attack. Which I wish I would have, like some things I never got when I was a little kid, like Larry Flint. I was like, the dude's a gross pornographer, man. Who cares? But now I can see that it was a much bigger deal. It was a much bigger fight. But there was still a lot of pushback. There was a lot of pushback, even though it was Larry Flint, and he was the head of Hustler and all that. But then when they went after InfoWars,
Alex Jones,
it wasn't as much of an outcry. It was just the wackos that were, and just those crazy conspiracy theories. There was
with Hustler, he was bringing something to the people that they wanted. I was watching a documentary last night about, I think it was America's Book of Secrets. They have some new episodes out and on Netflix, and they were talking about mafia, and they talked about how important it was that the prohibition came along because the mafia needed an illegal product that the people wanted to make all this money. But then to be the underdogs, like he was like, they were the Robin Hood. They were bringing the people the alcohol that they wanted that the bad government wouldn't let them have. And so they became this Robin Hood, and the Hustler is kind of the same, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So he wasn't vilified the way that, and I'm not saying I agree with everything Alex Jones says, but the way that InfoWars, he's not really bringing you that naughty thing that the government is, you know what I mean?
But
stopping you from having.
I think the government with 9/11, William Shatner show, 9/11. No, I think with what happened, the government figured out that they could get this fervor that allowed them to get this 1984 kind of loyalty thing, like when the Dixie Chicks, and this is another thing I look back on, and I was on the wrong side. The Dixie Chicks had said something, Bush is a warmonger or something, and everyone's like, "You hate America." They're like, "We're the Dixie Chicks, dude." But they're done. There was the beginning of cancel culture. They were canceled quick. And there's like Mark Twain said, you should support your country 100% all the time, and you should support your government whenever they deserve it. And that's something that everybody needs.
Two different things,
and understand. If you're just talking about prohibition, I need to tell you something, and everyone in chat. I got a code for everyone for free coins from Bandemic. So write this down.
Okay, hold on. I'll make a banner up for it so everybody can.
The code is Lisa, all capital letters, LISA, and then go to bandemiccoin.com and you can redeem it for free bands. Just have your Binance Smart Chain wallet with a MetaMask and you're good to go.
Bandemiccoin.com. And
yep.
Thank you. Code is Lisa. All that. Thanks.
Yeah, I told them what was going on, and I asked them if I could get a code. But the reason I remembered is one of the people involved in Bandemic, his grandfather was the guy that supplied Al Capone with booze. Oh. Yeah, so I thought that's very interesting to me.
There we go. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting. He has like pictures.
Glad I can bring that to you.
The mafia during Prohibition was like, "Oh yeah, I got that code."
Oh, it's going to be interesting when our real history comes out. I mean, I do think that we will get to that point where we'll have the constitutional education of America, and that we will know the true history of our nation. And so it's just.
That's something that I've been dealing with the past couple of weeks. That one statement, we're so in tune, dude. It's very weird. It is very odd how you say what I'm thinking. You think it's very, very cool. But I watched this video a couple weeks ago. I think I mentioned it to you that this guy was a Marine, and he was talking about how he took his oath to defend the Constitution from enemies without and within. But he said, when I was done, I thought I've never read the Constitution. Everyone here's never read the Constitution. We just swore, our lives to defending it, and we don't know. We know it's good, we know, like, it's something. The Constitution's a lot like the Bible. People will defend something and stand on it like it's the foundation of their lives, but they really never read it. They don't really know. They've only been told something over and over again. Oh, this is an unforgivable sin, you go to hell. This is like with suicide or something like that. But they've never really looked into it or read the Bible on anything on it. And then when I tell people, it's like, why do you say that? That's how it is. Well, who told you that? Well, like, everybody. That's like, you can just do it.
That's because if you go back to like the core of the Bible, if Jesus says, talks about, and I'm the worst Bible quoter, I'll just preface all of this with that, but the greatest commandment is love one another. And so if you go back to that, I think if you have that relationship with God, you know what the Bible says, and when you talk about the Constitution is based on the Magna Carta, which is based on our God-given rights, which is, and the Constitution is all about limiting government from infringing on our God-given rights.
That's that's one of the things that I say to people, because people,
so if anything bumps against your God-given right of who you are in God, in Christ, in God, who God created you to be, if that starts pushing against who you are and doesn't make sense, then you can ask those questions. Like,
well, one thing people always quote is that's the separation of church and state. It goes against separation.
That makes me crazy.
And then I say, do you know what the separation of church and state is? Do you know why it was enacted? Do you know what it's for? They're like, yeah, to keep the church out of government.
No.
And I said, no, it's actually the exact opposite. It was made to keep government out of the church.
Right.
Never was made to keep church out of the government. It was made because, like the Church of England, so much of the church was corrupted by the government, and that's what gave it all that power. But it was never made to keep the church out of government.
When my oldest son was in kindergarten, so I was like really young mom, first baby in school. I'm just getting into public school, which is my first kind of bump into any kind of public civil service, government, whatever. And I'm volunteering and whatever. And I go up and it's Christmas and he's making a little floor mat and his middle name's Christian. And so we would, when we're spelling his name and whatever, I'm like, in Christian the T is crosses for Christ. And, so we talk about all this and I'm raising my kids. And so he gets a new little teacher. It's her first year. She's from Canada, from some Catholic school. So she comes here and we're in a predominantly Christian neighborhood, all this, but because of the misunderstanding, miseducation, and like you said, the flipping of words, how things have been turned backwards, upside down, whatever. All the other teachers are told her, oh, now you're in public school, you separation of church and state. You can't talk about God. You can't talk about this and that, whatever. And so I come in and Zach had made his little Christmas floor mat. And she comes up to me and she goes, don't worry. I threw away his floor mat because he made the Merry Christmas and he put a cross on it. And he said it was for God. And don't worry, I threw it away because she was terrified he was going to get in trouble. And I'm thinking like, something's wrong here. And So I go home and I'm like calling my husband. I'm like, I think we're going to have to look at putting him in private school. Is this right? And so he calls, asks his dad. Well, his dad happens to have breakfast every week with the school superintendent. And he's like, let me ask my buddy. Well, the school superintendent calls the principal. Now all of a sudden everyone's on high alert and they think I'm trying to get somebody in trouble. It blew up into this gigantic deal. And I was like, look, I'm not trying to get anyone in trouble, but we all need to have a conversation. Like, I just want to know what the rules are. Is that the rule in public school? Is that you can't have talk about God or whatever? And like the teacher sat while this is all panic and everyone is worried about getting in trouble, the teacher sits down and tells all these 4 and 5-year-olds, you can't talk about Jesus or God in school and whatever. And everyone's in a high panic about getting in trouble talking about God. And the reality was, no, that's not it at all. Yeah, there's this reindeer rule. A teacher cannot tell a child you have to put a cross on this item or you have to believe in God. A teacher cannot tell a child that in public school. But there's like a
that would be infringing on their right to worship or not worship. Yeah.
Their beliefs or whatever. But a teacher can say, I believe in God. A teacher can say, I believe in whatever, but there's like a reindeer rule where it's like 3 candy canes every cross or 3 reindeers to every cross. Anyway, it was the most bizarre thing. And I just thought, here we are in probably a 98% Christian community. Everyone's uneducated about it. I guess back to your point where people don't really know the Constitution. We don't know our rights. We don't know what the rules are. We have these terms that we don't even really understand. And I guess that's where when push comes to shove, and that's what we're seeing, in these other countries, when you're seeing these people in Italy and in France spraying the president's home with horse shit. and whatever, and people.
There's something I want to talk about France and the great insurrection that we had here.
Yeah, but having we can go over all that stuff.
But something to talk about the comments about the Bible. He said it's there was actually stuff in there about how to own a slave. One, did you read about that? Do you know what it is and what give the Bible quote so I can look it up because I want to look that up. Because that's something that, like I said, just everyone says things that they believe are true, and honestly, it's backwards. The Bible does not say anything.
Or taken out of context.
You're going to hell if you commit suicide. If you commit suicide, it's unforgivable. And that's just man's interpretation because you're committing a murder and you're not able to ask for forgiveness for committing it. Therefore, so that's literally judging someone and that's judging their soul. Because you're saying that they're going to go to hell. You're doing the judgment, which you're not supposed to do that. But man, I'm just losing my train of thought so bad. You're talking about the separation of church and state.
About I
remember in high school
a little bit, but back to
in high school, I was in the FCA, the Fellowship of Christian Athletes. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Completely, and that's what started it. Because, I had a girlfriend that was really political and she said something and I was like, yeah, that makes sense. It's all like funded, school funded and everything, but it's, it's Christianity. And I guess there could have been, because school clubs were open to anything. So if there was any other groups, it would be open to them. And I mean, I guess that's why there's probably, you're able to have like gay student alliances and things like that, which would have not have been a thing when I went to school. But
I think people need to be careful when they talk about bringing prayer back in school and all that stuff. Like, be very careful, because I know that sounds like a good idea, but when you fight for bringing prayer back in school, one day it may be the Satanist turn to hold prayer. And do you want your kid repeating Satanist prayer that day? Because then it's about being fair, and you know what I mean? Because then it's
absolutely. But that's
or a Muslim prayer day or whatever.
that's where the teacher can't make you put a
Right.
cross on your thing, but they can put it. So if you have silence time or prayer time,
Right.
you could choose to not pray. You could choose to pray. You could choose to pray to Satan. You could choose to pray to whoever. I think that's what the freedom is supposed to be. Not any kind of forced, you can't say not forced indoctrination and talk about public school. That's literally what it is. It's an indoctrination camp. They don't teach civics class anymore. They don't teach people about their rights. And getting back to the beginning thing that I said, I think any police officer, any prison guard, anyone, any soldier that says I will defend the Constitution should have read the Constitution first. I mean, Sully said that they should be able to should have memorized it. It should be like a test. Okay, that'd be great, but I'm just for them having read it. And everyone that has to defend the Constitution should have a little card with the Constitution. That's like part of their, in their wallet, in their purse, and the Bill of Rights. But that's one of the biggest problems when it comes to, I think, police officers, is that most, especially younger ones, just don't know what a lot of times what they're doing is wrong, and it doesn't make any sense because police departments can get sued. It's literally just remember Reginald Denny? That's what he got millions of dollars for when the police beat him up in L.A. because they violated his civil rights. So I think it's very important for anyone that defends or as in law enforcement to understand and to have read the Bill of Rights and the Constitution. And things would be so much better if everyone had.
Well, and that's what Trump was trying to do with this 1776 commission, which this was even hard to find because when I was just trying to search for it, it was talking about how the 1776 commission was to warp everyone's mind. And
were you the one that sent me this stuff on Wikipedia?
I don't know.
I just find it on my own. So the guy that started Wikipedia in the past couple of weeks has come out and said that it's completely taken over by left-wing political ideologists. That it's a propaganda tool now.
That it is it always was.
But this is the dude that started it. It's like when Musk was talking about how he's working with Doge, and that the founder
is bashing this too. So this is probably a bad one too. But look at all this. It says commissions tried to rewrite U.S. history, takes historic scholarly step.
This brings up a really good point that I wanted to make, and I wanted it hit me when you said start talking about history. I'm so thankful. I wish it would have happened sooner, but with the invention of blockchain, I was talking to Roger Ver a year or so ago, and he said something just casually. And there's so many times in crypto, especially, that I can just remember someone saying something casually or me saying something casually, and then feeling the impact of what I just said, of how epic it is. And he said, there was no real recorded history until the invention of blockchain. All human history leading up to that, we can't trust. There's no way to actually trust it, even with pictures. Because when photographs came out, there's proof. Now, recorded history is it's provable. So you can't lie. Pictures don't lie, but now they do. With the invention of anybody being able to doctor photos, pictures lie. But with blockchain, when something happens, if it's recorded, it can't be changed. It's immutable. So anything that's on there, original photos, the statements, that's it. It's done. anyone can look back 100 years from now, 1,000 years from now, if power changes hands.
I mean, the picture could have been a fake picture.
Right, but at the time, like as soon as it happens, there's the stuff, there's the pictures, there it is recorded on the blockchain, real time stuff. If there's a film of atrocities while their atrocities are going on, I mean,
they can't be deleted.
Yeah, you could check all, or you could change all that Abu Ghraib, prison stuff, to where it's put nice backgrounds, and it's like, oh, the U.S. didn't commit war crimes, and then 100 years from now, people could be like, hey, it wasn't that bad. I can see why they didn't release Assange. But
I sent this to you, and then I went to go try to listen to it, and I couldn't pull it up on, but you can still see it in this stream where is it? Okay, so you can see it here, but then when I click on it,
yeah, there was one you sent me that was there wasn't anything there.
Hold on. I'm sorry. Let me do this, because you can hear it here, and I don't know why you can still hear it here, but then when you open it, it's gone.
We cannot require someone to be vaccinated.
Yeah.
That's just what we can do. It is a matter of privacy to know who is or who isn't. I can't go to the Capitol physician and say, give me the names of people who aren't vaccinated so I can go encourage them to, or make it known to others to encourage them to be vaccinated. So we can't do that.
Now watch this. When I go, oh, it's still there.
That's just not what we can do.
Oh, I clicked on this the other day and it was gone.
Who is or who isn't. I can't go to the Capitol physician and say, give me the names of people who aren't vaccinated so I can go encourage them to, or make it known to others to encourage them to be vaccinated. So we can't do that.
Well, that's kind of encouraging that it's there now.
Yeah, that's all. See, we're so different.
Because I clicked on this just the other day, and it was totally deleted.
Right. Now, let's say that I put out a post and then it doesn't work for you. How likely are you to go back and try it again a few days later if you weren't talking about it on a show?
Right.
So the original impact is if someone can post something and you can thwart it for 2 hours, 3 hours, the impact it's going to have is going to be way, way less. To me, in my mind, that's what that looked like.
It's just so many weird things.
Yeah. Yeah. So France.
Okay.
So I don't know if you that sent it to me with the
Oh,
they broke into the government building.
Yes, I have it.
Massive protesters breaking stuff, and they pulled Macron's picture off the wall, held it out and threw it out the window. No one's, and then the fact that nobody's talking about this kind of stuff, none of the media sources, because it completely goes against their narrative. Elisa's not frozen, y'all. She's
No, I'm looking. I'm sorry. Here it is.
God, I thought you were frozen.
No.
You just scared me.
I'm just very still. I'm busy. Here was that video.
Yeah.
And we're not advocating this because I don't know if they were allowed to be in there or not.
I said they broke in. And see, you're scared to say that you don't advocate that. When you're literally, you should have the right to believe in that. If you incite that, it's a different thing.
They weren't in the, there's certain buildings you're not supposed to be in during certain times and whatever. So I don't know if they were allowed to be in this building or not. But
they're not allowed to pull the government stuff off the wall.
Probably not allowed to destroy stuff, but
yeah. But like I've talked to, we talk to more people internationally than anyone. definitely the average American.
Probably.
And everyone overseas is like, dude, why are they acting like your insurrection was an insurrection? It's like, they're putting it out there like it's the worst thing that's ever happened. It's like funny to them because this is the stuff that they're seeing day to day. And that's another thing that's so obvious if you look at like international news and really see it. It's obvious, the propaganda on both sides, Fox News propaganda, MSNBC, all of them. They're not showing real news. Did you watch that documentary by the Post or the I forget, it was the Post or the New York Times, one of them. I think it was probably the Times, but it was so bad. I mean, like I watched it and I was like, those MAGA people got to go to prison. It is bad.
Well, if they broke in and damaged our Capitol, they should.
But it was
if they broke the law, they should.
It was a documentary and it was done. You got to watch it. You really do. It's like 30 minutes, and it is because it's good. I think I'll watch CNBC, I'll watch CNN, I'll watch MSNBC, and it's so. But that's one place where I get discouraged. I was telling you about like just follow George Takei and read what people say. It's like the exact thing that the right says. I mean, it's exact. It's word for word, and it's like, how do these people believe that? How do you see what's happening, and then and what people are saying? Because you can watch like Hannity or something, and you can see this propaganda. When he's calling the president by goofy names, and he's a reporter,
right?
And then you can watch CNN, and it's so weird to me. It's like Trump hasn't left office. Still every day, like, Trump did this today. It's like, dude, what?
Yeah, why are you still following him?
Why would you let it go, man?
Yeah.
But it's like still like little stupid stuff. Like he was golfing. Was Obama golf? What did Obama do? Why aren't you covering every past?
Well, they're trying to pass. They're trying to pass a law, I guess, that he can't be Speaker of the House. So out of all the people in the world, they want, which we talked about this on the show over a year ago. There was a theory. I have a friend with a spouse in a 3-letter agency, and that's one of the favorite theories is that that the Republicans will win the House and the Senate, and that because the House can actually nominate and vote for, I guess, bring in anybody. They don't have to even be someone in the House to be.
Yeah, that was weird. I thought that was weird.
So it's kind of a wild theory and thought, and then the thought process in it is that, and then he's not actually serving a term, one of his terms. He's actually finishing out the Harris Biden term, and then could run again in 2024. I don't know how legit that is or not. I don't have a clue, but that's they sure are making a lot of noise about it. And is that then
we're getting to this weird place where like Sully, Eric Sullivan from Consent to the Governed. I always make fun of him. He frustrates me because he believes that the way things should be are the way things are. And I always argue with him, and his friend Tom always tries to get through to him. And we can't. He will say, no, they can't do that to you. I'm like, no, they do it. Like my town. If your grass is too high, they can give you a $300 ticket, which they have. So now, my kids are grown up. I'm like, hey, you guys, have to mow the lawn. You have to pay the ticket. Still goes to me. They'll come and they'll write a ticket because I'm the homeowner. But I'm like, you guys got to pay the $300 ticket. I'm not paying it. You got to go to court.
Yeah.
So you can go to jail for your for not mowing your grass. Yeah, you can go to jail for farting in my town. Yes, that's a whole different thing. My friend got a ticket for farting when we were kids. I swear, I will tell you the story after. But I thought it was the craziest thing. But Sully's like, oh no, they can't do that. And I was like, yeah. And he said, no, they can't give you a ticket. I'm like, I've had to pay tickets. They did it. It's like, no, they can't. And he just doesn't, he just doesn't get it. And you're talking to him about if you get pulled over, like you could do this and you could take a crap in front of the cop and throw it on him or whatever. Just making that up. But he's like, that's protected. So I was like, dude, if you do that, you're gonna get beat up. He's like, no, you won't.
Yeah, you will.
And I'm like, yeah, you will.
Yeah.
So it's this reality versus the way things should be. And we're getting to this point now, going back to like the beginning of the show, where the reality is completely different than the way things should be. So things that are supposed to happen or should happen or should not happen, it doesn't matter anymore. Because the agencies and the things that were put in place to make sure things did happen or to make sure things didn't happen, none of them are doing their job. None of them are working.
Right.
So it's literally just power. Power is all that matters. You shouldn't be able to be deplatformed. You shouldn't be able to be silenced. These things shouldn't happen. Everything we talked about today shouldn't be allowed to go on, but they do because the people in power have the power.
I relate a lot of it. I mean, a lot of it to me, what we're going through and what just hearing you talk about it, it goes back to my first marriage. It was very abusive and controlling. And it got to the point where like a third party had to be involved because nothing I said or did mattered. It was an alternate reality.
Yeah.
And I had no control. And so the law, it had to bring in a third party and so I think that's where these other countries are coming in and the people are like, look, we're in this alternate, nothing that should be is. And so we're saying enough.
Imagine
we're having to bring it
that reality you lived through.
That law.
But you couldn't go to the law. There was no third party.
Well,
that's what we're moving to. And that's what's scary.
Yeah. I think that's that. And I don't know, I text you that video or that audio of the and I did not share it with my Patreon yet. I will share it with my Patreon, but I wanted to preface that I am not validating that it's real audio or that I have any knowledge of where it came from. But there is a supposed leaked audio of a Australian group that is wanting to peacefully work for the good of the people. And
a group of law enforcement.
Yes.
Yeah.
And write things for the good of the people. And they're coordinating. And it's very interesting. And so I'll share that on my Patreon later, but I wanted to give a little disclaimer because I've had a couple people freak out when I share things because I get excited or I find things and I just kind of like put it on Patreon for everyone to critically think for themselves, but then sometimes people freak out.
Yeah. So, well, that is, I think, one of the reasons about the insurrection that is scary to the wrong side, to the powers that are abusing their powers, is they go after the keepers of their oaths. That group. I know lots of people that are prison guards, police, great, and that whole group is just a camaraderie of people that took an oath to pretend or to defend the Constitution, and that they will keep their oath, no matter what their orders are. That their chief and main promise is to the Constitution and to the United States, not to the government, not to their boss, not to their governor, it's to the Constitution. And if they got an illegal order, they would not obey it. That's it. That is so, it's just pure. And they were trying to get them put on like a terrorist watch list, which is and it's made up of soldiers and law enforcement. That's the whole group. It's not like crazy wackos, or it's not just open to anyone.
Well, I was watching one of the witnesses today talking about how there were only 2 women there and 2 Asian men. I had friends there, and I can tell you there was like a bunch of women and old ladies and all colors of people there, and pushing strollers, and there were babies there. And I mean, it was absurd to think it was just a bunch of middle-aged white men.
And you talking about abuse, I don't know whether I sent it to you or you sent it to me. I think I may have sent it to you. I did send it to you. When that everyone, this has been in the news, that Rand Paul and Fauci exchange.
Oh yeah.
Or Rand Paul hit him. He's like, "Hey, you obviously lied. You're going to retract that now?" Yeah. And he's like, "I didn't lie. You lied." What? This is what gain of function is. This is the definition of it. This is what you funded. So you're going to come out and say that? No, that's what you say. It's literally classic abusive behavior, just flipping it.
Mm-hmm.
Gaslighting.
It's
It's like you cheated on me with my sister.
Yeah.
Why'd you bring your sister around?
Yeah.
You must have wanted it. I mean, if it's ridiculous that Fauci turns it around. Yeah. It's like, you can't handle the truth. It's so bad. It's so blatant. It's just like abusive behavior. And Rand Paul literally is like stunned. He's like, "What? I did everything correctly here. This is logic. And I did it. What? You're the one that funded Wuhan. You did." It's like,
no, you signed the check, buddy.
It was really weird to watch. But I mean, if you know anything, you can just look at Fauci and
Yeah. The good thing is that Rand Paul followed up with and delivered on his promise, sent official criminal referral for Fauci. So that's, now we'll see if the DOJ follows up. But
see, that's what I was talking about.
Referral was sent.
That's what I was talking about. The people that are supposed to, the watchers are not watching.
Yeah.
The people that are supposed to fix things, they're not.
But at some point, then the people will say, "Look, the watchers aren't watching, and I'm tired of this. And why am I paying my taxes and, protecting, being a part of, like, this government's not my government."
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Well, being in Texas, I mean, I can tell you, it's like the main thing about the Democrats leaving and going up to Washington is that they're not doing their job.
Right.
I mean, they're supposed to be, their constituents and who they represent are completely against the bill, then they're supposed to be here fighting against the bill, not running away for photo ops. Mm-hmm. And did you see that one blue-haired chick? She called herself brave on Twitter. She said, "I'm one of the brave Democrats who came to Washington."
Who ran away.
Ran to Washington. No, she said ran to Washington, blah, blah, blah. And then, I mean, of course, the comments were just awesome. Like, dude, if you have to call yourself brave, you're probably not brave. And but now they're asking for care packages.
Oh, you got to be kidding me!
You haven't seen that? They're asking for care packages. First off, me and my friends are paying them $6,000 a month in walking around money while they're there. They get $200 per diem per day from us, the taxpayers. That's not including what they have to pay for. Their hotels are all covered. Everything's paid for. They get $6,000 a month, $200 a day, walking around money from us while they're there. So that's infuriating. But they literally have put out a request for care packages for stuff from Texas, like salsa, Dr. Pepper, and money for you to send them like cash. It's ridiculous. So Dan Crenshaw is like, these people think they're in Afghanistan and are asking for care packages. It's the most ridiculous thing, and it is.
As they're in their second home, I'm sure in
It's
DC, their
offensive.
condos and whatever. Yeah.
It's so offensive, man. But I was watching Gutfield said, I don't advocate this, but I'm sure it's easy to get the address to send the care package, and you could send them an I don't care package. So that is actually a brilliant idea. Just send them a picture of you like flicking them off in an empty Dr. Pepper can. That would
There you go.
But I'm sure they put you on a list, man.
Yeah, you would get in trouble. All kinds of trouble. All kinds of trouble. Not to jump around too much, but there were a couple other videos I wanted to share. Let's see. Should we say on that first?
Well, we haven't hit on Arizona yet, and I know you are always on every Tuesday you hit on Arizona.
Well,
but I think
the best Arizona.
I think the best thing is that Arizona is not the big deal anymore. To me, the fact that these other states are picking up. Was it Wisconsin?
Florida is calling for a full forensic audit.
And then I think it was Wisconsin or Michigan that was they're discrediting is the wrong word. They're they're not accrediting,
decertifying.
I guess that's it. Decertifying the voting machines.
Oh yeah. We talked about that. Was somebody on the chat? I don't know. It might have been Wisconsin.
I think it was Wisconsin.
Michigan. I think it was Wisconsin.
It was one of those ones where they talk funny.
I remember. I think we talked about it last week, though.
Hey, Chris.
Yeah, I want to say it was Wisconsin. No. Crud. I sent it to.
That to me was huge. That, and then Georgia, there seems to be this like a fight going on inside, where it's not really one-sided. So, and there's not, that's one thing, if you watch the coverage of it, it's hilarious to watch, like Fox, and then go watch CNN, because they're like, all those crazy people doing things that don't make any sense are doing that crazy stupid audit that's no good and isn't mean anything. Let's look at the story now. I mean, it's
Pennsylvania. It was Pennsylvania.
It was?
Yeah, Pennsylvania. And Pennsylvania is also known as a Keystone state. And so if you're a 17th letter person, there is some stuff in there about Keystone or something about Keystone. So that could be significant for that. I can't remember all that stuff because it's been a while.
Didn't Biden shut down the Keystone pipeline?
Oh,
now the Keystone state is doing this.
Dun, dun, dun. I don't know.
And they worked with Kevin Bacon.
6 degrees of separation.
6 degrees of Kevin Bacon.
I don't know.
But I think that's the huge thing, that because you're able to make fun of it, you're able to talk down about it if it's just one state, and you're always able to make fun and talk down if it's Texas. One, because we don't care, and and two, it's because there's no way you can really do anything. And Texas is a perfect example. What Texas could, we could take over the whole country. Everyone knows it, but we don't.
Well, or you could secede and be perfectly self-sufficient because of oil production.
Yeah, we have I think I was talking to Lee about this and Kiff's Crypto, and he's like, "Yeah, you wouldn't be able to be self-sufficient." I was like, "Yeah, dude, we have the."
Yes, you could.
I think the 18th largest GDP by country.
Yeah.
So I mean, in California definitely could, if they would run things right. But the fact that they have so much, they literally are like, they could feed the world, let alone just being self-sufficient for food. But just with the mismanagement that they have, is the fact that they're a welfare state and take money from the federal government is nuts.
Well, and I think a lot of that is really skewed. I mean, I've been out to California and I have friends that live in California, and the majority of California is government land or BLM, which I don't even think that's a mistake or a, you know, coincidence. Um, but they there are probably less libtards there than there are really good. California used to be red. And there are still a lot of really good people. It's just in those condensed, you know, Hollyweird and the media that makes it look like there's all these libtards there, you know, and leftists there and all that kind of stuff. And so I'm really curious, like, and now we see what they've done with the count and all that. How much of California really is blue? You know, I mean, is that all a myth too?
I don't know.
You
I
know?
think a lot of it is. I do think a lot of it is. But that's something I do want to bring up, which because no one talks about this. And going back to my buddy Robert, he lives in Oregon, and he works in Washington because there's like massive taxes in Washington, not Oregon. So that's why he lives in Oregon. But I had brought this up and talked about this, I think, when we did the show on my channel, that there's actual counties that are trying to secede from Oregon and become part of Idaho because they don't. Basically, like you said, this is not our state. Doesn't represent what we believe in. This is, you know, it's ridiculous with all the riots and everything. They want to leave the state. And I saw one story on it, and I was like, that's insane. And I sent the information to Rice because we were talking about something like that happening. It would be crazy. And then I was like, this is happening. These counties are trying to secede from their own state. That's unparalleled. I've never heard anything like that. But that's it. It's not talked about. And I talked to him and just mentioned it. He goes, oh, yeah, that's huge. I was like, dude, there's nothing on the news about that. He goes, are you serious? It's all over the news. I was like, is it your local news? He said, well, yeah, every 5 o'clock, 10 o'clock. I was like, yeah, we don't, nobody.
So they're
even
letting them think that the world's talking about it,
Yeah.
but they're just hearing it and they're thinking everybody knows about this, but they're just hearing about it.
I said,
That's what
nobody knows about it.
I kind of think that's what's going on social media too, that like
Yeah.
I tweet and I think people are seeing this stuff and I'm like, oh, good, I'm getting this out. And then I'm like, and then I talk to my friend, I'm like, oh yeah, I tweeted about that. And they're like, I never saw that.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, I feel like I'm churning in this. I'm like in the spa and I think I'm swimming laps.
You're on a hamster wheel and you think you're getting, but that's
I'm running
because
miles.
they can control that. Those platforms can do that. It's just a form of shadow banning.
Yeah.
But he told me that they've went through all these legal processes, that it's been, you know, fought against, and it's legal. Like they've gotten to the level where they're going to be able to do it.
Wow.
Now, yeah, wow. Can you imagine the impact that would have on the country if that?
Yeah, because that will change Congress. That will change. I mean, that's going to change stuff everywhere. That changes.
But impact on just the way people think. Like, how would you report that as CNN or as MSNBC? You can't. Oh, there's a bunch of crazy people in Oregon. A quarter of the state has.
Well, they'll say it's some extremist militia.
Over different counties. And they will. They will, because they can say crazy.
They'll say it's a compound of some kind of, yeah.
And but if it happens, that could be, and this is what Rice thinks is going to happen, that we're going to form these city states, which, being someone that lives in a decent sized town, you don't realize how many people live in cities. They really are. I don't understand why, but they really are the condensed population into these urban areas all across the United States is just mind-blowing, which mirrors China. China is huge, but they have food problems because there's so few people that are not in their urban areas. I mean,
well, no problem. They're making plastic into food. I think I sent you that article too.
They've been sending us plastic rice or plastic in our rice for years anyway.
Yeah, nice.
But they still have a class system there.
Yeah, caste.
I didn't know that. Yeah, well, kind of. So when
Is
the
that different? In
when the,
China
when the
or
communists took
India is
over,
a caste system.
when the communists took over, you had to make a choice. Like you either had to become, and your family would become a urban citizen or a rural citizen. And if you became an urban citizen, you were guaranteed like a job, a place to live, and something else. If you became a rural citizen, you're guaranteed a plot of land, food, and something else. But over the years now, the rural citizens, they have less like power. They have less rights. They're not as they're like the second class citizens compared to the. But it's to the point like where you can't, you know, you can't run for office. Like, because you can move from, leave your parents' house from the country and move to the city, but you're still a rural citizen because like that's your class. So when it comes to getting a job or running for any kind of like office or doing anything with like the government, you are still less than a
Like back in Jesus's days, you go back to where to go pay your taxes. You go
yeah,
back home to vote and
that
pay
kind
your
of thing.
taxes and that kind of thing.
Or it's a class system. Like if you were in a feudal state or even in like old Europe, you can't do that. You can't get that job. You can't become a doctor and study for that because you're not. Your family did this. They made this choice. 50 years ago or something like that. It's just mind blowing that still exists.
That is mind blowing. I want to touch on 3 quick videos and one last little rant before we go, because the hypocrisy is just incredible.
Also, go to pandemiccoin.com
Yes.
and use your code. Definitely. Those are only good for a few hours. I think they're good for like today, which I'm actually going to try to use mine now.
Let's see here. I'll just do these really quick.
It's just code Lisa, which let me share my screen real quick.
Okay, hold on. I think I have to undo mine. Now you can do yours.
Okay.
Do I have to give you some kind of permission? Oh, here.
No, I don't think so. So you should type in Lisa, and then you click I'm not a bot, redeem, and it should be it. Oh, geez.
And do they have to open a wallet or something? Or
yeah, you connect your MetaMask to
MetaMask.
Binance Smart Chain. So you click that. So some of y'all have been redeeming. I think there was like 25, and then you wait for it to get go through, and then you claim them and you're yours. There you go.
Thanks. That's really cool.
And then you claim them, and then you got the bands. Boom.
Very cool. All right. So this one made my head spin around.
Yeah, that was weird.
Yes. This one is blaming people that if you pass away from the stick, that it's your fault because it's your job. They're providing the stick and they're providing the appointment with your doctor, and it's your job to get informed consent, and it's your job to make the decision.
Your pharmacist as opposed to seeing the GP. And secondly, can you talk about the 2 people who sadly died taking AstraZeneca? And would you be worried if one of those people, as I understand it, or the family claims wasn't fully informed of the symptoms to look out for?
Well, we're all responsible for our own health. And when it comes to informed consent and giving consent to whatever treatment or procedure you may have or I may have, then I'm ultimately responsible for what people do in their health treatment to me. And there has been the opportunity for people to visit their GP, to have that consultation. The government has provided that and funded that. And the informed consent process provides the decision to the individual. That's the sort of country we live in. People make their own decisions about their own health and their own bodies. That's why we don't have mandatory vaccination in relation to the general population here, because people make their own decisions. And we encourage people to make those decisions. We make as much information available to them as possible. The vaccines, like any vaccine, with any vaccine, there are risks associated, and I won't go into each of the individual ones because I don't want to particularly draw attention to anyone. But we all understand that with any vaccine, there are risk factors, and they're enumerated and they're made available to people, and people make decisions about that. I'll let the Chief Medical Officer and others speak to those because they have the details. I've been informed of those cases, and there have been other cases, and they're terribly tragic cases, like all of these are. And I feel for their families in those situations. And this is the terrible impact that pandemics have when you're responding to pandemics. But I do know that if vaccination rates, as we see, particularly for those who are older, are not where we want.
Okay, so there was that one.
Yeah, when he was saying it, I'm like, I just kept hearing Cuomo. We're gonna knock on the doors. We gotta take the people. We gotta put them in the car. We gotta take them there. We gotta stick them. We gotta take them back home. Mm-hmm. That's what we need to do. And he's talking about it's your fault and your responsibility, and you gotta. Yeah.
And we're paying for it. Then there's this one, yeah.
And we have to get in those communities, and we have to knock on those doors, and we have to convince people and put them in a car and drive them and get that vaccine in their arm. That is the mission.
So I remember a long time ago, Bitcoin Ben talking about not ever buying a self-driving car, because what happens when the doors lock and they drive you somewhere and the doors unlock. And then this one was another nice threatening.
Those who are not vaccinated will end up paying the price. Those who are not vaccinated will end up paying the price.
And then there was one more that was, I believe it was Gruesome Newsom was threatening or comparing unvaccinated people to drunk drivers. But just all of those just were absolutely insane to me, but especially that one in Australia where they were, telling people that it was their fault that we all have to be responsible for ourselves, their health. So we saw Fancy Nancy earlier and with her mask on, which we know she's fallen ill and her people. So obviously the face diaper doesn't work because she's the biggest one wearing it. But then
it's not like it says it on the box or anything.
Yeah. I mean, it's just
it says it on the box. And that's when people argue with me about masks. I just say, why does it say on the box it doesn't work for viruses? And then now it says specifically for the coronavirus. Why does it say that there? And it's all like
there was also
there's nothing you could say. That's like
there was another statement they came out with today. They've also Twitter has also blocked all of the audit war rooms. So Maricopa, Pennsylvania, all of their Twitter feeds. So you can and I know Maricopa and a couple others on Telegram, they have links so you can follow them there. And they've said we don't have additional Twitter, so don't believe if you see another Twitter link there.
I wish that all social media would be shut down except for YouTube. And I wish that YouTube would be under massive threat. Like, don't try to censor anything or else you're gone. Because people use YouTube for other things. People use YouTube to, fix their sink and whatnot. But I don't think that a lot of people think they can exist. I'll give you an example. I got my kids a trip to Washington State for their birthday, so they could go visit their friends. And I took them to the airport, And I've been to the airport in Austin 100 times. It used to be very simple. It was right off the highway. But, just whenever I drive now, you pick up your phone and put it into the GPS. And it told me to go this crazy way. I mean, it was like 1,000 turns. And it took 2 hours.
What?
And yeah, it usually takes like an hour. So, and my son's like, maybe it was like this way to avoid all the tolls, all the toll roads. I was like, oh, that makes sense. It's just I must have clicked the wrong one. So I drop him off, and the Austin airport was crazy, and you're not supposed to be out front. They were they were out of the truck. So I'm typing in the to go back home because I was literally lost at the airport. I was
Right.
weird way. And I typed in 218 BLA, and I live on Blanket, 218 Blanket. And the street over there is Spur, and that's Bridle, and there's Saddle, Cowboy. It's all like horses and Western stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So it comes up, there's all the different, addresses, 218 Blanket. I just click it. I'm not paying 100% attention. I start driving. And it was gorgeous. It was I was like, this, I've never been this way. This is like the nicest hill country that I've seen in forever. And I went over some aquifers, and it was so beautiful. So I'm driving for like 45 minutes. And I was like, no, still don't recognize any of this. So I look, and I pull over, and I was going to 218 218 Saddle Blanket Drive, which it's just a combo of my address and the street next to me, but it was in Dripping Springs. So I've been going the opposite direction for all this time, like into the deep hill country. So I was like, oh my God. And then my son texted me. He said, the plane was delayed. So we're just waiting. And I told him what I did. He goes, that's not a real address. That doesn't exist. So I take a screenshot of the address that I was going to and then turn around. But I ended up getting caught I hit Austin at 5:00. Terrible traffic.
Mm-hmm.
Took me forever to get home. But I was become so dependent on that technology that it's like I can't exist without it. And I think that a lot of people think that about social media, like they couldn't make it without Facebook and Twitter. People are.
That's the way we get our news. I mean, I think that's why Mike Lindell's coming out with this, his August 10th, 11th, and 12th.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to have this, I can't remember what he's calling it now, but he's coming out with the information about the count and his symposium. And there's a movie called Deep Rig that Patrick Byrne did, the former CEO of Overstock.com. And Mel Gibson's coming out with a movie, God Please Protect Him, about Soros and some of those people. And that is the way we learn. And, people have this, and, I understand your point is like, oh my gosh, it's running people, but they thought that about books. And you may have been who had this conversation. This may have been your own point. I'm going to throw this right back at you.
But there are people. It's a real thing. People are addicted to it. If you don't have your phone, you get nervous.
Yeah.
This is you get. It's a weird response. But I think if they just shut down all social media for like 5 days,
guess what? You're in luck.
People will be able to get clean. Like they would know. It's not that bad. I don't need it, It's something I want to have, but I don't need it.
And guess what? You're in luck. It's going to happen.
Good.
Because we know that this kind of stuff's happening. And then there's also, let me see if I can find Jared Tate from Digibyte made a comment that he had been given some information that that there were going to be some DNS, which I don't know if that means server, or he said DNS servers like I said, I'm not good at exactly quoting. I get big ideas. I'm a little dyslexic, so I like speed read stuff and get like the majority of the bulk of information.
My nephew that just passed away.
Oh,
He I'm sorry, but he worked for AT&T, and he's like, man, this lady came in. It was so hard to help her. I think she was Lex Dixon. And I started laughing. I was like, wait.
and you're like, you are too, buddy.
Were you making a joke? Or did you just say that? He goes, what? When people see things backward and stuff, Lex Dixon.
Perfect.
I was like, oh, Tony, you have no idea how funny you are, dude.
So Tony, me, and Albert Einstein. So yeah. So, but he was talking about how there's, and I mean, there's supposed to be a big EBS that FEMA put out a statement August 10th, 11th, 12th, or 11th and 12th, something like that. Really interesting that it coincides with the same time that Mike Lindell's trying to get his information out. So we'll see, but I think that we'll have some blackouts, some servers down and stuff like that. But
yeah, I remember like Facebook went down, and it was just for like hours. And it was this huge thing. But it makes so much money just on the financial side of it. Facebook's down for like 3 or 4 hours. It's hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars.
Interesting.
What was I about to say? It was something with the...
I threw you off with the dyslexic comment. Sorry.
Oh, I must think Tony was hilarious. He was a funny guy. I told the story at the funeral. He was going to the DMV to get his license renewed, and they're like, "What's your height?" He's like, "Oh, 5'12". By the way, he's like a really goofy guy. He's he's not dumb. He's not dumb, but he's kind of not 100% there. And the guy's like, "You sure about that? You're 5'12"? He goes, "Yeah, I'm 5'12". I know. And he's like, "I'm gonna ask you one more time. You are sure that you are 5'12"? And he goes, "Yeah, I'm sure. I know. It's on my birth certificate."
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. It was that was funny.
Ode to Tony.
Yeah, all my friends call him 5'12" Tony now.
I love it. Well, we don't mean to bring anybody down. We're bringing information. But I just had a really awesome reading with my psychic friend SL369 and Jill Jardine, which will release on Thursday. But right now it's live for Patreon. If you guys want to check that out, it's $5 a month, and you'll be entered to win a Digibyte Zinc coin and a Digibyte poker chip. That's this month's giveaway. Helps out the channel, and we're going to be doing our traveling happy hour show, which hopefully Sean will be joining us when we come to Texas. We're still figuring out our location on the Texas thing, but it looks like it'll be pretty good. And I thought it was really interesting because she's talking about the transition and that Bitcoin's going to be that bridge. And it just made me think about when we were waiting on Sean's computer to reboot, people were talking about how they wish they knew as much about cryptos that Sean does. And it's really exciting to be here in this time and know that we have that bridge. And even though we're going through this turmoil that we're looking at, and we have this opportunity for sovereignty and freedom, and that cryptos are the way. So
it is something I wanted to talk to you about specifically that I've been pondering the past week or so, because that I'm like been really down and you are my hopium dealer. Yes, but I'm a realist, and like I said, if everyone knows the quote, people that don't learn from history are doomed to repeat it. Mm-hmm. But everybody says that, but then they just follow and they do the same stuff. And I ask anybody, when did any country or empire get to the point where we're seeing the things happening that happened where it came out good, where it turned around without bloodshed, without, fire. It doesn't, it's not, never. But we've never had cryptocurrency. And this is what I've been thinking about. In you saying it's being that bridge. In order for things to fall, things are going to need to fall, but it may not fall as hard. There may be more of a transition than a fall, because the dollar is going to have to break. And if it does, there's a vacuum, and the vacuum is just, I personally would be filled with the only thing backing the dollar, which is violence.
Right.
All around the world, violence would have to step in, or authority. You can call it whatever you want, but it's still a dude with a gun. It's our dudes and ladies with guns in different places around the world and at home. But with crypto and the quick adoption that we're seeing now, there's a viable choice to fill that hole to where it could transition. And if more countries follow Paraguay and El Salvador, it will have that infrastructure set up, and it won't be it'll be much more peaceful, as prices rise.
I also think there's this awakening, like when you're saying, like, oh, this is so weird, we're on the same wavelength. And I think a lot of our friends in the chat, and a lot of my friends that there is, I mean, I know people think it sounds hokey, but I think the Great Awakening is a real thing. And I think we are having that collective consciousness. And like, my daughter is visiting me more and more, whether it's in my dreams, or she's leaving little screws around the house more, or I'm having these, chills when I'm talking more, or and this world is becoming more, I'm bumping into things in this world more. And I think that's part of what people are having too, is that we don't fit in it anymore. And I think that's why some of these people are like, in the countries, like, we're bumping into our government. Like, no, we don't want to stick. That's not, you're not listening to the people.
That may also be a real big reason, and I hadn't thought of it till now, of why every agenda everywhere is meant to divide us. Because we were coming together. We're coming together in a more collective consciousness, coming together more for a positive goal for our species. For our race. There's not different races. There's only one race. That's right. Right. There used to be two, but we killed the other one. We genocided them out. So there's now only one race on the earth. We're all humans. The color of our skin doesn't matter. Where we live doesn't matter. It's I always try to think of things in form of explaining it to an alien, and you really realize how ridiculous some things are. There was an episode of Star Trek where they went back in time, and this guy's like, "What are they doing?" "Oh, those are called cigarettes." It's like, well, they're they set it on fire and they breathe in the smoke. Why? Is it help them, or is it like, no, it actually shortens their lifespan, and he like lists all the terrible things. Is it a punishment? No, they actually pay for it. What?
It makes them feel good for a minute. Yeah,
they pay for it, and it has it's like, why would they why do they do it? Well, it's also addictive, and it's just illegal. No, it's not. So whenever I'm thinking about anything, I try to think of it in that context of explaining it to an alien who's just like, in things, you can see how ridiculous things are. Like, well, we don't like that guy because his skin's darker. Well, you go in the sun and you turn brown. Yeah, that's true. But that guy, he didn't have to go in the sun. It's like, so you have to work to have darker skin, but you're mad at him because he just has it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. When this guy, he was born over there. So we don't like him.
But I think that's that when you're saying like we're coming together and we're they're dividing us, and that's why nature. So we were out walking the other day with my kiddo at this little nature park, and my husband's like, "Oh, look at that." And there's this tree that's like broken and the termites are eating it, and it's still coming back and fighting. Nature's going to prevail. Humans are going to keep going. They're going to try to divide us, but we're going to keep going. And I think that's where like consciousness, all of us coming together, these things trying to divide us and destroy us, are just going to fall away, and we are going to keep growing. Life is going to keep going, and we're going to keep going together. And these bridges, these things that are bridges, which I think Bitcoin is one of those things that the dead things are going to just, we're going to grow over them and keep going. They're going to be forgotten, and we'll make new.
When we talk about taking away the power from, legacy things, it'd be one thing if they use their power for good, but it's usually to suppress humanity or put us in a bad direction with wars and atrocities and other things. And Bitcoin is one of those things, or cryptocurrency in general, that we have now.
Right. It is a game changer that we can take our energy away, where before there wasn't that option. They had all the power, and this is something that we have an avenue or vehicle to take that energy or power away. Yeah.
Yeah. We have more. Nature has more strength than the termites.
That's right. Absolutely. Well, thank you guys for joining us. Make sure you check out your Bandemic coin. There's links in the description to follow Sean's channel on YouTube. Make sure you go subscribe and check out his channel as well. And thanks you guys for being patient with us, and I just appreciate it. Sean, thank you so much for joining me. I enjoy our time together, and thanks for letting me annoy you all week long with all my messages and everything.
That's awesome.
I appreciate it. All right, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow. We're going to have astrologer and many other titles. Jill Jardine joining us with Public on Woo Woo Wednesday. So we'll see you guys tomorrow. Take care.